Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. This is Winston Bloomfield here. I'm reporting from New York City. I have I just actually I broke into this apartment and killed everyone here, and nobody really seems to have any idea about it yet. So I'm just chilling here for the time being. Once the cops show up, I'll probably barricade myself in here. I'm pretty heavily armed. I have a few traps set, some grenades and some mines and explosives. And so, once the cops come, I'm just gonna kill as many of them as I can, and I'll probably steal a cop car, and I'll be fine. I'll get out of there pretty quickly, and I know how to survive. But anyway, so yeah, I'm just chilling here, and I was watching this. Just been watching some YouTube videos, and saw this Young Turks video, so I wanted to just share it and comment on it because it's about some very interesting stuff that's going on in the world right now, especially in America, and things that Americans should really worry about. Things that Americans should really start paying attention to because a lot of us aren't. We're pretty much in our own worlds, and I can't speak for everyone, obviously. A lot of people are actually doing really well and very focused and fighting the good fight and very active and proactive and politically active and politically self-aware. But then there are also a lot of people who are just not politically self-aware, and it's unfortunate because if we had all of us together, or at least 85 to 90% of us, at least 80%, even 80% would be just a massive difference and just very beneficial for everything. But let's go to the interview and check it out.
Big show. We found out how Israel's gaming AI. We're going to explain that to you a little bit later, so they could manipulate the so-called facts that you get. How many times has Fox News pushed for war? Some startling numbers on that. The MAGA civil war continues, but then we got a civil war on our own side, so lots of Democrats attacking fellow Democrats who are criticizing Israel. Of course, they were never Democrats. They were never on the left. They're always.
This is all about Israel. This is all about Israel. The civil war on the right and the civil war on the left is all about Israel. If you want to know why, just, read about the history of it and don't just read one side's bias take.
Made a mysterious trip to Moscow. John Ratcliffe meeting with Russian officials early this morning. Trump downplayed the significance of the visit. Here he is.
This bitch fucking hates Trump, so she'll try to shit on him, make him look terrible whenever she can. Take his stuff totally out of context. Okay, wow, he said that. Wow.
That's why it's startling that it happened. So America gives an explanation. Russia has already denied it. I have my own secret explanation. That'll be fun for everyone. But first of all, you got to find out the whole story, isn't it? So that's why we go to Anna.
Yes. Oh, I'm so curious what your theory is. I do not know exactly why our CIA director visited Moscow, but I will tell you what both sides are saying about this meeting, beginning with the Wall Street.
I'm a big fan of Anna Kaspari. Anna, if you're watching this, and you probably get it, I'm sure you'll see it eventually. Somebody will tell you. But I would love to have you on my show. I'd love to have you over here, and I'd love to talk to you about Israel. Big fan. Big fan. I've been watching since 2006. Actually, I used to hate you guys back then, but things happen, times change, and wow, life is a whirlwind. Jeez. Okay, let's get back to the video here.
Russia incessantly, and I'll get to that in just a minute. But nonetheless, the argument is that, our CIA director, John Ratcliffe, visits Moscow specifically to warn Russia in person against striking NATO. So you would be under the impression that Russia is making some moves, right? There is some indication that Russia poses an imminent threat to our NATO allies. They're thinking about striking soon. But get a load of this, okay? Bear with me as I go through the reporting here. So, citing anonymous sources who were briefed on the visit, they claimed that Ratcliffe was there to deliver a warning to Russia not to attack NATO countries. Again, that sounds like it must have been an imminent threat to NATO countries. But the same piece, the exact same piece, notes this. New US intelligence assessments reported earlier by the Wall Street Journal that Russian President Vladimir Putin could try to test the resolve of the North Atlantic Treaty Organization with a limited assault on an allied country in the next few years.
I wonder who that could be.
What? I don't believe for a second that John Ratcliffe went there to warn against attacking our NATO allies. US officials are concerned that Putin could launch an assault ranging from a cyber attack to a small scale land incursion, likely on a Baltic nation.
Wow.
So you're telling me that there is
The Baltic states, by the way, are Ethiopia, Latvia, and Lithuania, because they're by the Baltic Sea.
a strike against a ally of ours a few years from now. And that's why our CIA director needed to travel to Moscow to meet with officials there. He didn't meet with Putin, according to the reporting. Putin was briefed on the meeting afterward. But Cenk, I'm dying to know what your theory on this is. What is this about?
Okay, so what it's not about is normal Russia, Ukraine, or Russia, NATO, because that's,
now listen to
they've
this.
been in this war the whole time. Trump's been president for nearly 2 years now, so there's no need to send a secret plane with our CIA chief to Russia to talk about that. And even if they're planning to attack Estonia, we've been talking about that now for about a decade, maybe more, since Russia attacked Georgia. So it's not like it's impossible, but it's also not normal. I mean, not abnormal, right? So, and there's no reason why we couldn't say that publicly or that we couldn't use regular channels. So he went there to deliver a message in person about something super important. There's no question about that. Not something that is, as Trump said, semi-routine. This is not a semi-routine process at all. In fact, it's extraordinarily unusual. So my guess as to what it could be that important is, now some things are gonna happen next. The most important thing is that Russia not join a war against us, because then the world blows up. So do not join a war against us. So, well, what could be a war against us? Because we're not joining the Ukraine-Russia war, we're financing Ukraine, but we're not physically in it. That makes a huge difference because we're both nuclear-armed countries and we don't want to face off against Russia. That risks the entire planet, right? There was one thing that happened recently that would actually put us in a war together. Ukraine hit an Iranian ship. And if the war broadened and Ukraine is fighting against Iran and then drags Russia into fighting with Iran, well, we're fighting against Iran, then all of a sudden the battle would be joined and Russia would be against the United States. And that is super duper dangerous. There's a second thing that was announced just recently, which is if anyone is working with Iran, we're going to do sanctions on them. And the sanctions are not normal sanctions. We're gonna take you off the dollar. Now, if we take you off the dollar, that's a thermonuclear economic threat and puts us into a conflict of sorts with folks.
Pause,
It doesn't necessarily.
Okay, so let me tell you what all this is about. Israel knows it's a pariah, so they're going to try to drag as many countries into war with each other to get everyone fighting with each other, to distract from the fact that they've committed genocide and ethnic cleansing and have committed crimes against humanity and war crimes all over the Middle East. God knows, we know what we know. Imagine what we don't know. Okay, we know that they prevented aid from getting to the Palestinians who are starving. They've cut off their electricity and their water after they bombed the shit out of them. Completely just, I mean, if you look at the footage, it looks like a nuclear bomb went off. They did more damage than a nuclear bomb would have done or an atomic bomb would have done just by doing smaller, hundreds and thousands of small bomb, 500-pound to 1,000-pound bomb attacks. I mean, Israel is trying to get everyone to fight with each other so that nobody focuses on them, everyone forgets about them, and they're also going to try to manufacture some kind of bullshit where they get attacked and something terrible happens to them so that the world sympathizes with them. That's how they always operate, and that's how they continue to operate, and people will most likely continue to fall for this shit. And the world will continue to be run by the Zionists.
Lead to a war, but if we're going to do that, certainly Russia will view that as a very hostile act. So I could understand why a president would send someone to talk to the Russians now. Look, guys, we're going to do these things that might bring us into conflict. Let's avoid that conflict. So let us do whatever we're going to do against Iran, et cetera. And whatever happens with Ukraine is maybe your business, right? But by the way, if they're doing that to make sure that we avoid a conflict with Russia, that's not a bad thing. That's a good precaution. So in a sense, I'm giving them the benefit of the doubt that it's a trip that's meant to avoid something bigger and worse for America. And Anna, we also know that our foreign policy is, well, I think it's 100% controlled by Israel. So if that's the case, they're not going to talk about something that isn't related to Israel. And Israel's the one that's basically trying to get the whole world into some massive worldwide conflict, talking about attacking Turkey. Could that have ramifications for Russia?
The fuck did I just say? I didn't even watch this video, and I said the exact same thing that he did. And he's actually qualified to talk about this shit.
Getting further out there, and I hope to God this isn't anywhere near what was discussed. But a couple of times now, the Israelis and Israeli supporters in American media have started to talk about nukes. So if anyone uses a nuke, then the Russians would certainly, be on a red alert. And by the way, if you were to nuke Iran or Turkey, they're both right next to Russia, and the radiation could go over to Russia, and they are allies with Iran. So
who the hell has been talking about fucking using nukes since 1986? Like, nobody has wanted to ever use fucking nukes since the Cold War, the end of the Cold War. Oh my. And now all of a sudden, because the whole fucking world hates Israel, now they gotta start threatening people with the nukes. They just gotta start dragging people into wars, try to get other people to get into wars with each other. You see what's going on here? They're trying to they know that they are facing an existential crisis because everyone hates them. And they're surrounded by enemies. I understand that. They're surrounded by Arab Muslims, who a lot of them are radicals, and they kind of just want to wipe the Zionists off the face of the earth. And likewise, for the Zionists, they want to do the same thing to the Arab and Muslim nations and their populations. And I don't believe that. I don't think really anybody who is educated enough to understand how things work believes that every single Muslim and every single Arab in the Middle East says death to America and thinks death to America and death to the American people. And even the people who do say that, they don't mean death to the American people. They've said this and made this clear. You can look it up, do your own research. You'll find plenty of evidence of this. They mean death to the American military and the military-industrial complex that has devastated their lives and devastated their land, and taken the side of Israel and helped Israel also devastate and destroy them and try to ethnically cleanse that land of certain people. That's why they hate us, because we support Israel. If we didn't support Israel, they wouldn't hate us. And we could do business with them, we could get along with them, we could have great relationships with them. We could accomplish things, we could innovate. But Israel is getting in the middle of all this shit, causing all this infighting, all this other shit. Now we're talking about nukes. So just think to yourself, okay? What would be the greatest solution to this problem? I think would be to just get rid of Israel, the people in charge running the Israeli government that are brainwashing everyone to think this way, and to want to have this greater Israel project where they're using aggressive warfare to expand their land, just like the Germans did when they tried to expand Lebensraum into the Eastern Europe. They're doing the exact same thing. They're using the Nazi playbook right now to also to propaganda the propaganda side of things, and also with their military operations and their military policies and their foreign policy. And they're using the United States, and that's not comparable to Nazi Germany, because who did Nazi Germany have as their allies? They had Italy, they had Finland, they had Romania, they had Hungary. I mean, that's really about it. They had a couple neutral countries that helped them, like Portugal and Sweden, but they didn't send any troops or anything. Spain had just gone through a massive civil war after Franco and the nationalists dominated the Spanish government, and they took over, and they were just, they had just been through hell, so they weren't able to help the Germans, unfortunately. Just imagine if we had like full strength army of Spaniards, like, we're talking, 25 extra divisions of Spanish army and full strength, battle hardened. What a difference that would have made. But instead, of course, in Operation Uranus, we had the weak Italian divisions and some Romanian divisions. The Romanians were tough. They were good fighters. They were strong. But they just didn't have the communications that the radios the Germans had and everything, and a lot of them just completely disintegrated when they were just going straight into massive Soviet onslaughts. And they had no idea where they were going, because there was so much disorganization, because the Italians and the Romanians and the Germans, they were all together in these two areas where the Russian pincer attack for Operation Uranus came, and none of them were able to really communicate with each other, and they all just got totally just annihilated. But anyway, that's besides the fact. Let's get back to the video.
We're worried about Russia retaliating on the most important issue of nuclear. You would do something extraordinary, like send your CIA chief on a secret mission to say, let's not nuke each other. So those are your options. What is not an option is, it's a regular routine checkup with the Russians about a thing that we've already been talking about for a decade.
Right, and obviously we're just speculating here because we don't have much to go off of, and I certainly don't trust either government to tell us the truth about what the discussions were really about. For instance, Dmitry Peskov, the spokesman for the Kremlin, said a lot of this kind of
Dmitry Peskov. Let me do my my Russian impression. A lot of this kind of scare story material is being published right now. Of course, it has nothing to do with the reality and nothing to do with the intentions of the Russian Federation. Dmitry Peskov, Kremlin spokesperson. The source Reuters, from the Moscow Mule. Why did CIA Director John Ratcliffe just visit Russia? Shit, I forgot to turn back the volume on.
Falling within the remit of their respective intelligence services. So I like your theory a lot, Cenk, and I think I would put more weight behind it if I was more optimistic as you, but I'm not as optimistic as you. What you just detailed in your theory is something that would require a government that actually is a little more forward thinking, that's making preparations to kind of minimize the type of devastating destruction and damage that would be done to our country or the world through the types of military action that you were describing. I just don't see this administration as the type of administration that prepares for anything, really. They seem to shoot from the hip. So the idea that Ratcliffe traveled to Moscow specifically to warn against doing certain things in retaliation or in response to our actions in the Middle East, I just find it hard to believe. But maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm being too pessimistic.
And so, Anna, two things about that. Number one, if you're going to send your CIA chief to have this kind of extraordinary conversation, that's why I mentioned what I mentioned at the end. The thing that's most likely to have that spark that conversation is the potential for nukes. That's
okay. That's something we should get back to. But I just want to read a comment from the comments section, the chat replay, if I may be so bold here, and just go over here and do that. I believe the comment that I'm referring to is this one here by the Linux Yes. Now, the Linux Yes says, I bet Rufus the Demon Core, the baseball size ball of plutonium like the one in the Trinity Blast. The Trinity Blast, as we all know, was the first test of the nuclear explosion overseen by Robert J. Oppenheimer in, I believe it was New Mexico, Los Alamos. That's where the Trinity test took place. It was the first nuclear detonation. So I bet Rufus on the Demon Core, the baseball size of plutonium like the one in the Trinity Blast, could straighten Israel //Nutty Yahoo out really fast. Giggle. So basically what Linux Yes is saying is what? He's basically saying he wants, he thinks that nuking Israel will straighten Netanyahu out really fast, and he thinks that's funny. Notice I'm not laughing. I'm just reporting the news. I'm just reporting, trying to give the facts out. All right, let's continue.
the number one reason why you would want to have a super secret meeting between the intelligence agencies. Now, let's hope that I'm wrong, and obviously that's speculation. I have no idea what they discussed internally. I wasn't in the room, and neither was anybody else. But that leads to my second point, which is, here's what the intelligence of the Russians and the Americans are not going to do. Tell the press what they actually talked about. So whatever reason they gave publicly is definitely not the correct one. Otherwise, they wouldn't have had a super secret meeting in person between the two heads of their intelligence groups. They're not going to tell you what they actually met about. There's a 0% chance of that.
The other thing I want to just note, on the topic of Russia potentially attacking a NATO ally of ours, I would just ask kindly, nicely. I know people are going to be up in arms about this, but I would just say that NATO allies need to stop provoking Russia. And I genuinely do mean that. What do I mean by that? Okay. Stop talking about balkanizing Russia. Stop talking about weakening Russia and breaking it up into 5 parts. Please stop doing that. That is not making the situation better for you. I get that you guys hate Russia. You can hate Russia all you want. That's fine. But when you are having conferences and you're making public statements about balkanizing Russia.
Shut up for a second. Yeah, I think she's completely right. I think that's a great point. I think people really need to just chill, back off Russia. They're going through some real shit right now. They're losing a lot of men every week. A lot of young men are being killed in this war. Just, let things play out. Keep an eye on Russia. Keep them in check, but you don't have to bully them. Well, look what happened when you bullied Germany after World War I with the Treaty of Versailles. Turned out to not be the right move or the best move.
we've done a lot of war. Nobody thinks we're weak or unwilling to get into stupid wars for almost no reason and to stay in them for decades on end. Believe me, that's unfortunately our reputation. So we don't have to protect that reputation. Everybody knows, right? Look, I want to go to graphic 10 here because I want to give you guys a sense of another thing that triggered for me why this might have something to do with something that isn't just Russia and Ukraine. Zelensky put out a statement saying, "I received warm congratulations to the people of Ukraine from Prime Minister Netanyahu of Israel. Our countries share deep bonds between our people, between our people in the first place, but also in the economy, culture, and other areas. It is therefore good to hear of Israel's desire to strengthen these existing ties. We count on working fruitfully together to bring about more security." And Netanyahu wrote him a letter, and that's what he's responding to. It was very warm. Netanyahu doesn't write a letter to the president of Ukraine for no reason. He does it because it involves some sort of strategy related to Israel where they're going to create more war.
Well, let me ask you this. Why would anyone write a letter to someone for no reason? I mean, that just doesn't make any sense. What kind of comment is that? Sorry, back
Intelligence for Russia as well.
I just think that everything that's transpiring right now, the way things are developing for the West in particular, is so short-sighted, so dumb, especially when you consider where the United States is at right now when it comes to its Patriot missile interceptors. We have depleted them, yet we're still engaging in provocative acts, we along with our allies, that would indicate that we're putting ourselves at risk. If we don't have enough missile interceptors to carry out a war against Iran, what makes anyone think that we would have the missile interceptors necessary to provide protection to Ukraine, provide protection for ourselves here in the United States, considering the fact that we're making enemies left and right on the international stage through our support for genocide and the barbarism that Israel carries out in the Middle East? Like, what are we doing?
Shame on us.
Yeah.
I don't understand what the end game is here. Like, what is the goal? What are we trying to do? Are we trying to get ourselves killed? Are we trying to get the civilians living in these allied NATO countries killed? Why? What's up with all the provocative actions? Why is Ukraine getting involved in our war against Iran? It's just so utterly stupid. And rather than maybe taking a beat, taking a look at the situation we're in right now and figuring out how to, I don't know, unravel, like get out of this, we're doing the opposite. It's insane. It's totally insane.
The Jews are manufacturing and controlling all of this. We just have to look. I mean, have you heard of the Night of the Long Knives? Google search or just ask your AI or do whatever. Learn about the Night of the Long Knives, okay? That solved a lot of problems and, made things a lot more convenient for certain people when that happened. And I'm just saying.
That conversation was, it was super important about really dangerous things.
Yeah, absolutely. And by the way, you're not winning friends. You're not making allies by putting out love letters to a guy who's wanted. He's a fugitive of the ICC. Okay, Benjamin Netanyahu is a war criminal who is wanted by the International Criminal Court for crimes against humanity. And here you have Volodymyr Zelensky putting out a love letter to him on social media. Like, what are you doing? And by the way, you want the territory of Ukraine to be respected. What about the territories that belong to the Palestinian people in Gaza and the West Bank? That doesn't matter to you, right? You're willing to make an alliance with a literal war criminal who has carried out genocide in Gaza and is aiding and abetting the slaughter and displacement of Palestinians in the West Bank.
And by the way,
doesn't make any sense.
let's think that through for a second. So on one thing is, I'll agree with Anna, like if you want our money so that you could do an alliance with a maniacal genocidal government, no, thank you. No, that's like to us saying like, oh, in the middle of the the Bosnian genocide, oh, I'd like to make an alliance with the Serbs who are slaughtering people as we speak. Well, that makes me not want to do an alliance with you, right? That's weird. Second of all, why are you reaching out to a government that is so deeply unpopular in America? 2/3 of Americans now disapprove of Israel, borderline hate them, and
I'm
you
one of
think
them.
it's a good political idea to get Israel on your side so that America will help you more. Oh, right. You would only do that if you know what we're saying on this show, including in this segment, which is that it doesn't matter how much Americans don't like Israel or don't approve of Israel. Our government works for Israel. So that's why he's going to basically our dad and going, hey, tell your son America or tell your servant America to do X, Y, or Z. That is and by the way, it's not just about America. The rest of the world now hates Israel. They have almost no allies other than the puppet dictators in the Middle East that report to them.
It seems
Outside
that
of
way.
that, the whole world is turned on them. So how could it possibly help Ukraine unless you knew for a fact that Israel controls American foreign policy? So that's why you had to make an alliance with Israel so that America will stay in the war longer for you.
Right, and there are all sorts of foreign policy analysts who believe that Ukraine intentionally struck that Iranian vessel in the Caspian Sea in order to inject itself in the war so they can get their hands on weaponry they need and interceptors. The problem is, and I don't know why world leaders are having a hard time understanding this. I'm not an expert, but I understand it because I listen to the experts.
It
You
drives
don't
me
just snap
crazy.
your fingers and boom, missile interceptors appear. It takes years to build them. Okay, so Zelensky says he needs 300. We don't have 300 to give him, not even close. And it's gonna take years to build them. So intensifying war, injecting yourself into another war because you think it's gonna work out well for the Ukrainian people is just so unhinged and so stupid, but here we are.
But Anna, to be fair to Zelensky, if he thinks the same thing we
Only in America.
to be the most powerful force on earth. That if you want America to do something, you ask Israel to do it. And then you do them a favor. That's why he taxed the Iranian ship to do Israel a favor so that he could beseech Israel to get them to order us to help Ukraine. That's kind of logical because they are our boss and Zelensky sees the same thing we see.
It would be logical under normal
Does he, though?
circumstances, but we are not experiencing normal circumstances. We have depleted our interceptors and we are running out of missiles. It's just
I love you, Anna, but you don't know what the fuck you're talking about when you talk about we depleted our fucking ammunitions, we don't have enough ammo, it's the US fucking military, all right? I'm pretty sure they got this shit, under control. As much as I despise this war, I don't want to be involved in this fucking conflict. I don't want to be helping Israel with their military operations or expanding over the Middle East or getting the Greater Israel Project. I don't even want to go to war and send troops and be involved in the Ukrainian and Russian war. Just let that shit play out. But listen, the United States military, they know what the fuck they're doing, okay? If they would, this is probably misinformation they're purposely putting out to let the enemy think, oh my god, America is running out of ammo, even though the enemy's not stupid enough to even fucking believe that. They're even gonna be like, oh, this is just propaganda bullshit, ignore it. The US is probably armed to the fucking teeth more than ever. Believe me, we're totally fine. We're not short of anything. Jesus. How can you be so naive, Kay? I mean, Anna. Oh, shit. All right, well, that's where I gotta go. I got a guitar stream starting soon. Check me out on Kick, YouTube, Rumble, Twitch TV, and Facebook. I'm on Truth Social. I'm on Blue Sky, and I'm also on Discord. And you can also search Alva Linker Linktree, and you can find all my links on my Linktree. Once again, this was really just an audio test. I just wanted to see how my new audio software worked. I got a NVIDIA GPU, and it came with this broadcasting software, and that broadcasting software is compatible with OBS, so I went to check it out and see how everything worked, and everything went pretty good, hopefully. We'll see. You let me know in the comments, and please subscribe if you like for more content coming in the future. There's going to be more than ever. And the content in the future is going to be better than ever. It's the best content that you ever have going to be on this channel so far, and it's just going to keep getting better and better and better and better. So check it out, and you know, if you want to just say hello, say hi to me on social media, and leave a comment, like, subscribe. That would of course really help, and I'd appreciate it. So. And also, there's nothing wrong with my nose. This is a Breathe Right strip, It's just a Breathe Right strip. You can buy them at your local pharmacy, your local CVS, your local drugstore. You just go in there, buy it, and you can take these things out and put them on your nose. They kind of like expand your nasal passages and your sinuses. Helps you breathe a little better, especially if you have a deviated septum, which I do, which is very unfortunate. It's been like the bane of my existence, and I think I've really underachieved in life, and I've been a mediocre person in life when I could have been a great man. This fucking deviated septum, that's what I blame everything on. It's not because I did anything wrong. It's not my fault. It's the fucking deviated septum, It has nothing to do with me. Anyway, thank you so much again for joining us, and we'll see you next time.